Whenever I come across something that people are excited for, or that I personally like the look of, I often find myself in the position of the cynic. Whether you like it or not, something can always go wrong. With the production, with the developers, in the writer's room, it could go so far as to just be a bad idea in general, and as far as my circle of interest is concerned, it's more likely that something will get hyped up and then released as broken, stupid, subpar, or a combination of the three. After years of consuming overly poor media, you begin to notice patterns in marketing or labeling that usually warns you of something's quality. Now, I'm generally not one to get excited for things before I get my hands on them, but I was looking forward to this one. The prospect of a new story set in the Secret World universe was pretty damn intriguing considering how fondly I remember my time with it. And well, it's here now, and it's not really what anyone expected. I have a strange relationship with Funcom. On one hand, they made one of my favorite MMOs of all time, The Secret World, in which you can LARP as an Illuminati field operative and kill Shub-Niggurath's kids, and on the other hand, they re-released The Secret World as Secret World Legends, a dumbed-down version of the game for normies that ruined it forever, according to the community, and more importantly, deleted the character I had been playing on since 2013. And while I'm on the subject, God, I think I'm legally obligated to tell you that this game has or had at one point been using Denuvo as a DRM. And if that means anything to you, you can go ahead and skip this one. I totally get it. Funcom was in bed with whoever made Denuvo for a while. It used to be a very popular digital rights management program that for a time was very difficult to crack, but it's completely crackable in a matter of hours, if not minutes nowadays. Nevertheless, Funcom still uses it, even in its compromised state. There was something about Russians using it as spyware years back, and more recently something about it affecting game performance. So if you go out and look up some stuff that you have installed and find out that Denuvo is on your computer, you should probably change some of your more savory passwords, just in case. I am genuinely curious to see the standard procedure for horror game publishers, because every horror game that I've played with the exception of Alien Isolation and maybe Outlast 1 seems rushed somehow, unfinished, and I don't think that's any fault of the developers. Even Call of Cthulhu had one good idea, but was clearly shipped with pieces missing. With that said, someone please tell these indie development studios that licensing a Lovecraftian IP doesn't automatically make your game a scary, surreal experience. And for what it's worth, tell the people who buy these games that too, as they don't seem to understand. Having some interesting ideas is not the same as having an interesting video game. The Secret World got away with it because on top of having a very well-written and intriguing story, it was one of the most solid MMO experiences you could play at the time. Moons of Madness does have decently interesting ideas, and the writing in most cases is just fine, but the game itself is slow, clunky, and kind of boring. In an interview about the game for the Unreal Spotlight blog, Aaron Dentino, the lead designer, stated that he thinks what makes a good horror game is not to rely too much on jump scares, and that it creates fear on a really personal level, creating an unnerving atmosphere, creating feelings of dread. What Mr. Dentino said is very true. Good horror games don't rely on jump scares at all. But however true Aaron's statement may be, the game doesn't really follow through on it, and I think the only time I even blinked while playing was during a jump scare. Another interesting curse that I've caught since starting to make these is, like the Call of Cthulhu, I have now played this game 4 whole times. I lost all of the footage from my first playthrough by error of it not existing. I sat down to play through it for the first time and the game turned out to be so short that I had made it to the end credits before I looked at my second monitor and realized I hadn't been recording anything for the past 4 hours. It wasn't as bad as having to replay Call of Cthulhu, sheerly because of Moons of Madness's brevity, but once I got to the final mission again after speedrunning it, I got a different ending that I didn't know existed. So I had to go back and play the whole thing again and meticulously touch every single interactable object and read every single text log on every single terminal to make sure there was no way I missed that other ending, only for me to find out later that day that the file format I recorded was not in fact .mp4 like I wanted, but rather .mkv, a format so foreign to Sony Vegas that my whole computer took a massive shit right there on my desk. And then, even further into the writing process for this review, I found out that the ending you get only depends on whether or not you press the I want the good ending button when prompted in the last mission, and the reason that button didn't show up on my second playthrough was because of a bug. I am now put into excruciating physical pain by the colors gray and red, and the main character's hot sexy breathing noises he makes when you hold down the sprint button for too long will now ring in my ears forever like gay tinnitus. Needless to say, I had to call in backup, so periodically you'll hear the dulcet high-pitched screeching etchings of me and Nathaniel in the background of the game footage, though I will attempt to make those parts brief.
Yo, what's up, everybody? It's the channel that Jack has here, and whoa, look at this thing. It's his review of the Call of Cthulhu.
If you don't want a story summary or spoilers for Moons of Madness, go to the timestamp on screen. And to start the spoiler section off, let me walk you through the first 5 or so minutes of gameplay I had, because I think it kind of explains why I feel a little overqualified to review this. 5 seconds in, that's the Orochi Group logo. Orochi is a corporate superpower from the secret worlds. They get up to all kinds of shady shit, and having an unsanctioned Mars base is definitely something they would do. Alright, I am in the base, and the power seems to be out, and oh, look, it's the filth. You know, that viral eldritch goop that's as integral to the plot of the secret world as bees. Okay, gonna continue down this hallway. Some of this is new. I've never seen this symbol before. And there's Funcom. Spooky ghost lady jump scares you, and the prologue ends. So within the first 5 minutes of gameplay, I've gathered that Orochi is behind whatever is happening here. There is a filth infestation in the base at some point in the game, and this ghost woman, who the crew refers to as the witch, knows my name somehow. All in all, this is a pretty good beginning to a game. Lots of information to process, some intrigue, a scare or two to set the tone. But if the intended demographic for Moons of Madness is fans of the secret world, that prologue spoils a lot of the subtleties and mystery that the game would otherwise have to offer. Rock Pocket cracks you over the head with the TSW setting so hard in this opening section that I was able to predict what direction the story was going with a fair bit of accuracy, because I looked at some goop on the floor and remembered it from something else I played when I was 13. I'm just gonna take a second here to make fun of the game for being the same as Call of Cthulhu, and literally every narrative-driven horror-themed walking simulator that has ever and will ever exist, because there's only one corporate formula for these, and man am I playing it. So, exactly like Call of Cthulhu, the real game starts when you wake up from the prologue and walk around your quarters, interacting with objects and getting a phone call. What woke you up from the prologue was an unusually large Marsquake, which means that your character, Shane Newhart, now has to go make sure the base's array of solar panels are functioning properly. On the way there, the crew talk to each other over the radio, revealing that everyone has been having strange dreams lately, involving violent impulses and a group hallucination of a naked woman who roams the surface of Mars, that they call the Witch. Shane also reveals early on that everyone he knows thinks he's working in Antarctica right now, and everyone on base has signed a non-disclosure agreement basically saying that they're never allowed to talk about anything that happens here. This is also where the majority of the story's characters are introduced. You have Josie, the no-bullshit base commander, Dr. Ina Volkova, the obsessive botanist from Russia, apparently. Damn, I couldn't tell. Lucas Van Buren, Dr. Volkova's socially inept monotone lab goblin, whom I assure you is definitely fine. And Declan, the snarky satellite technician. Fun fact, Declan's voice actor was also Sully from Kingdom Hearts 3. This review is cursed. All of these characters are running around frantically tidying up the base to make it presentable for the arrival of the Cyrano, a ship that is bringing them everything from vital survival supplies to tight-collared Orochi executives. And despite how important the landing of the Cyrano seems to be, the base and its surrounding stations are eerily quiet. Such would be the nature of Mars, I suppose, but you might expect at least one of them to come help you deal with the massive fucking flood in the base. When asked about it, Dr. Volkova basically tells Shane off, implying that she doesn't care and is too busy to tend to her own greenhouse. Shane does manage to get the greenhouse's water reclaimer back in working order, but by doing so discovers that Volkova's mangrove tree has been infected with some yet unidentified black sludge. It's the filth from the secret world. And then this happens.
Oh, spooky. Is it telling that I just yawned while I was watching?
Yes. It's very appropriate. And it chases you around the greenhouse for a bit. I don't know if it can actually hurt you because it never touched me in either of my 4 playthroughs. This is where the strange story beats start to disconnect a little too. This thing, which the game gives the grand title, The Thing in the Mist, clearly used to be human, but as far as we know up to now, all of the Mars base crew is accounted for. So who was this thing? And more importantly, why did no one question them being kept in a kennel and experimented on like the imagery here implies? It seems like the whole crew is in and out of the greenhouse a lot since you have to go through it to get to the rear airlock. You would think at least one person would say something. And with that, the part of the game I was initially excited for is over. You only encounter the thing in the mist like this once, and it doesn't even chase you the one other time you see it. Before Shane leaves the base, he discovers that all his radio channels are dead, so he hops back in the Meerkat and drives up to the satellite station to see what's going on. You don't actually drive this thing, by the way. It's basically just an exit mission button with extra steps, and you do this little dance with the door a lot. Upon arriving at the satellite station, Shane discovers that the landscape around him has suddenly changed, and you now enter.
A little on the nose, don't you think?
Shane discovers that the previously unmentioned and oddly shaped scar on the back of his right hand is somehow transferring energy to the strange mechanisms in the caves. This is basically a puzzle room, containing the only jump scare that got me, and it only got me because it was so obvious that I assumed it was a fake out, and then it wasn't. It was really weird. At the end of this section, Shane encounters the witch, and she tells him that Mars's moons, Phobos and Deimos, are actually sleeping beings from beyond the Veil of Dreams, among other Lovecrafty buzzwords, then teleports him to his childhood basement.
Dad, come pick me up, I'm scared.
What?
The shunned basement.
The implication here is that Shane's mother, a famous scientist who was approached by Orochi and then disappeared, presumably also by Orochi, had a literal fucking Necronomicon just in her basement, complete with tentacle altar and bone trimmings. You do a couple of little puzzles in the basement and unlock the Necronomicon from its tentacle receptacle, pick it up, and spring awake, still sitting in the driver's seat of the Meerkat outside the satellite station. Making his way up to the station, Shane notices that Declan may have become a little obsessed with these stone cairns he likes to build, and maybe a little unhinged too. This is either blood or Mars dirt, but either way, he drew Argartha on his bathroom floor. You're not really supposed to be able to do that unless you're anima adept. On the elevator ride up to the satellite tower, Shane turns to notice the Cyrano entering Mars orbit, and 5 seconds later, it explodes. So much for that. Shane uses his magic wristpad thing to fix the satellite and contact some of the crew. Though the reception is full of static, he manages to hear that they are at the base and headed towards the Cyrano crash site. Lucas stayed behind in the research lab, saying that the thing in the mist is some abomination of Volkova's research and that he may be able to stop it. Dr. Volkova, however, has gone missing. Shane returns to the base and finds it completely infested with filth, and Lucas has gone radio silent. Upon reaching the biological research lab, Shane discovers a formula for extra strength Roundup weed killer cooked up by Lucas to give the mangrove tree some form of explosive leukemia. Thankfully, though, you find Lucas in the lab across the hall, and he is definitely fine. Once again entering the greenhouse, Dr. Volkova reveals herself to Shane, now fully infested and taken over by the tree. This is technically a boss fight, but you rather unceremoniously beat her to death with a crowbar in a sequence of QuickTime events. After killing Dr. Volkova and taking her ID badge, Shane gains access to a secret elevator in the middle of the main lab that takes him down to a level called Argus, the real name of Volkova's research project, and decides to explore the lower layers of the facility instead of meeting back up with the rest of the surviving crew after they radio in to tell you that they found a giant stone door near where the Cyrano crashed. There are terminals down here that explain almost everything that's going on, outlining the real purpose of the Mars base, Volkova's research, the importance of Shane's mother, human experimentation involving filth, and cloning. The thing in the mist is probably one of these two babies. On this level, you also find an ID card belonging to the CEO of Orochi, and when you pick it up, it plays the level up jingle from the Secret World.
The CEO of Orochi? Holy shit, why is this here?
This game tears at my soul. The witch appears to you again, revealing to Shane that she is his disappeared mother, and she needs his help to retake something called the Gaia engine from Mars's moons, who are beginning to wake up. However, she is very cryptic about it the whole time and refuses to give you any straight answers, speaking in metaphors and insisting that there's no time left for her to explain herself. She then disappears and summons a spooky elevator with a control panel just filled with Lovecraft words. Once Shane reaches the surface again, Declan calls him and says that thanks to Shane, they've found a way to open the door and are proceeding inside. You listen on the radio as Declan and Josie are both killed horribly by filth monsters and then find their bodies at the foot of the Gaia engine. Declan lives long enough to tell Shane that his mother isn't who he thinks she is, specifically instructing him to tell her to fuck off.
Tell your mom to fuck off.
But he goes through with her plan anyway. I've looked around this area of the game a little bit, and you don't have any other options. Shane, still trusting his mother, follows her orders and attempts to get to Phobos by boarding a shuttle equipped with an emergency warhead. Why didn't they all just book it here and leave when things started to get weird? We'll never know. But the filth damages the hull of the shuttle when it takes off and it breaks up in Mars orbit. From here, the game ends. Shane is floating above Mars and leaking oxygen while his mother monologues about how this is all his fault. In a final act of defiance, he launches the shuttle's payload at Phobos and Deimos, killing them and his mother before slowly succumbing to the vacuum of space. Credits roll as news media from Earth reports on the disappearance of Mars's moons.
Astronomers continue to be baffled by the sudden disappearance of the moons of Mars.
I don't really know where I'm at with Moons of Madness right now. I'm sure everyone at Rock Pocket put in their best effort, and I'm sure the people who reviewed it positively really did enjoy it. I think it's just kind of lost on me. It's a game that I played, that's about how I feel. But all the reviews of it are completely contrary. PC Invasion, 8 out of 10. Eurogamer, 8 out of 10. GameSpew, 8 out of 10. It even has a 70 on Metacritic. That's not something you usually see for a game like this. For once, I agree with the review from IGN, though I have a hard time seeing the 3-point difference between this and Call of Cthulhu since you're doing pretty much the same thing in both games. And I know it's supposed to be this way, but the trailer for Moons of Madness is way more interesting than the actual game. It implies a pursuer of some kind, more character development, even combat, none of which is present in the game proper. Even the screenshots on the Steam page don't represent how the game looks that accurately. The only saving grace I can scrape from the barrel to give this game is how short it is. If you know what you're doing, you can easily beat it in about 2 hours, and in that time so much story happens that it feels like nothing happens, and you're not allotted the proper amount of time to process the events transpiring in front of you before the game punches its time card and goes home. If you'll indulge me, I'm gonna step up a little higher on my soapbox and wax philosophical at you about critical leniency, because I think it applies a lot here. People tend to let up on their scrutiny of a property when they are invested in it, and why wouldn't you? You're generally not supposed to shit-talk something you like, but I am of the belief that a piece of media's greatest fans should also be its harshest critics, to never play devil's advocate and to always point out the flaws of something so that in the future those flaws may be fixed. Unfortunately, there are very few people who think like this, and criticism is generally misused as a way to attack people who love something you hate. I don't hate Moons of Madness. I hate a lot of the things it does, and I see clearly where it fails at its goal, but at the end of the day, it's going right on the same shelf as all my other Lovecraft garbage. It lost some points for not holding up to my personal standard for the Secret World, sure, but that doesn't mean it's awful or anything. However, not awful does not in any sense mean great or even good, and unfortunately that's the metric I have to work with when looking critically at Lovecraftian works. A good analogy for this that my co-pilot Nathaniel came up with is that it's like being a fan of Christian media, as obscure as that sounds. There are exactly 3 good ones, and the rest of the genre is tone-deaf garbage, but it doesn't have to be anything more than that because it's got a guaranteed built-in audience. You can scream into the void about it as much as you want, but you can't unmake the Trump prophecy, in the same way you can't make Frogwares take back the sinking city and fix it. This abject lowering of the proverbial bar through the genre's audience is also why a lot of people who were in fandoms like Homestuck and Adventure Time at the very beginning now despise those properties. It's not what it used to be, the writers ruined it, or simply it sucks, coming from the guy with the Darkstrider glasses and the Scorpio shirt. However, these cases seem to be few and far between, and the other 98% of a fandom is perfectly content with wallowing in their chosen franchise's filth. It's a problem I see everywhere, but the re-emerging of Lovecraftian themes in popular media makes it particularly difficult to separate critical opinions from childlike wonder. There are a lot of people who didn't even know what Cthulhu was until the dreaded date of October 30th, 2018, and for them, Moons of Madness is only their second outing in the vastly ruined and unsalvageable hellscape that is Lovecraftian horror. They have no frame of reference to go off of. They've never seen better, and they've never seen worse. And for those of us that do truly care about the future of the genre, leaving a game like this unattended is risky business. What if it's the best one ever made? What if it's terrible? The only way to find out is to pay up and play through it. But by that point, it's already too late. You've given them your money regardless of the game's quality. And so the cycle begins again. A trailer is released that gets both new people and genre veterans' attention. Everyone buys it when it comes out. It's bad, but they've got your money, and the next game will be held to the same low standard as the last one because the last one sold, and all criticism, constructive or otherwise, is ignored. It's depressing, really. Moons of Madness could have been an absolute masterpiece had the people working on it held their game to the standard I'm talking about, with the same kind of love that was given to games like Evil Within 2 or even Visage. I hope that wasn't too off-topic. I just felt like I had to add some context for my attitude in this video. There may never be a good Lovecraftian horror game ever again. I'm still wrapping my head around the 3 consecutive bad ones we got within the span of a year. I'm on hour 10, I think, of writing this script, so that would make it hour 30 of working on this video. And after playing the game 4 times, stitching this video together, I still don't quite know whether I don't mind Moons of Madness or despise it. It's a 5 per se, a canvas painted concrete gray. Your average person wearing jeans and a t-shirt. It just exists. It's nothing to get upset or excited over, and in my mind, that's worse than being a total failure. It is exhausting in its mediocrity, and I can't recommend it.